You know when stores have way too much of a kind of merchandise so they put on a big sale to try and get rid of it as much as possible? Well, Vstock had a shitload of copies of Final Fantasy The Spirits Within on sale for like $3 a piece, and Biofascination and a fire sale are a real bad combination.
Final Fantasy The Spirits Within was released in 2001 and drew the wrath of fans for having absolutely nothing to do with the Final Fantasy video game series, aside from a few really obtuse references. The lack of connection is kind of weird given that the games were made by Square and the film was made by Square's own in-house film studio. Incidentally, said in-house film studio closed immediately after this film lost $100 million at the box office. It seems weird to hate on Spirits Within for having nothing to do with the games when every game has a completely different setting and universe, but whatever. I've only played one of the Final Fantasy games, so I will not have the fan bias.
No, instead, I'll just have the bias of Jim Sterling's numerous editorials on Square Enix being overly obsessed with details, fixated on stupid ideas, and unbearably pretentious. But you can't believe everything you hear online.
The movie opens with a woman looking at an alien landscape. She stares transfixed at the sun for a while, which makes Dutch angles happen, and then she steps on a scorpion or something, but the ground is made of water! And then someone shakes the camera really hard, and then it turns out it was all a dream.
Okay, you can believe a fair chunk of what you hear online.
This is our main character, Aki Ross, who starts as she means to go on, delivering exposition in the tone of somebody who's only half awake.
The same strange planet. But why? What are they trying to tell me? It's been 34 years since they arrived on this planet, and not a day passes that the survivors do not live in fear. I have vowed to end that fear.
The DVD defaults to having the subtitles on. I'm convinced they were hoping you'd watch with the dialogue muted.
You know, for a movie that was this damn expensive, I dread to think what kind of bargain basement dime store voice actress they got to...
Aki is voiced by Ming-Na Wen?
How? Does not compute!
Ming-Na Wen is awesome! Mei on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., she got an Emmy for voicing Mulan, for Christ's sakes! Ming-Na Wen is incapable of this level of incompetence! What happened? Strap in, folks, because we're in for some weapons-grade stupid. Square proudly announced that Aki here was going to be the world's first ever virtual actress. A character model that would show up in other movies as different characters, the same way actors are cast in different roles. And they meant to put her in live-action movies. Basically, imagine if you were watching something innocuous like Dredd, and exactly one of the characters was a PS3-era CG model that all the live-action people were treating as a real person. Square even took out pages in Vogue showing off Aki, trying to convince people that she'd be a real person. Can definitely think of a different Aki that I'd rather see in Vogue, but that's neither here nor there. Ming-Na Wen's performance was supposedly directed to be as bland as possible so that Aki could be a blank slate that could appear in other settings and roles. So they figured the best way to push this huge new idea of a virtual actress was to make said virtual actress as forgettable and boring as possible on purpose. Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, anybody with half a brain should be able to tell why this virtual actress bullshit was an ungodly stupid idea, but I'm gonna run down my list of reasons anyway.
I don't care how advanced these visuals were in 2001. Aki was nowhere close to passing for a real person. The lighting is off, her motions are too weightless, and her hair has the physics of a Newton's cradle. You could never stick Aki into a live-action movie, and I know because they tried. The special features DVD opens with Aki walking through some live people in a studio. Low-res footage, camera out of focus, and going out of their way not to show faces, she still looks out of place. Creating CG people for live action is crazy hard and expensive to still look worse than a live actor, which is why it's only done either as a tech demo or for a franchise gimmick. If you want Ming-Na Wen in your movie, you could either blow millions of dollars and years of extra development time rendering an ugly out-of-place CG model, or you could just cast Ming-Na Wen! You can't stick Aki into CG movies either because every CG movie has its own art style, and most of them don't go for realistic human models like Aki. You can only use Aki if you built an entire movie specifically around her, and nobody's going to do that because a boring woman CG model from some podunk indie studio's crappy licensed movie is not a selling point. Furthermore, Spirits Within was in development for 4 years, and they had to scrap most of their early footage because advancing graphics technology made it obsolete. It was demonstrated that even if Aki took off, she'd be outdated in a year or two.
So the movie is saddled with a completely useless protagonist in the name of selling some coked-up Square executive's worst idea ever.
Anyway, Aki explains that Earth was invaded by aliens a few decades earlier. The remaining humans live in domed cities, and she's trying to stop the aliens, or as she pretentiously puts it, to end fear. She doesn't explain how she plans to do this because understanding what's going on before the half-hour mark is for sissies. Aki wanders around the abandoned ruins of Old New York City. Seems like the old and new should cancel out, but whatever. She walks around tracking a life form until invisible ghostly monsters called phantoms attack. The phantoms being invisible is meant to be a take on how RPG enemies don't appear in a game until a battle starts, which is a long way to go for a reference that I didn't even get. A group of 3 soldiers airdrop into the city to escort Aki out, but she runs away, and suddenly between edits, there's just a 4th soldier there. Seriously, that's not even difficult to spot. Aki grabs what she came there for, a weed growing out of the ground, while the soldiers just kind of shoot at an advancing wall of enemies off in the distance. They escape using that same dropship that James Cameron recycles for all of his sci-fi movies. Seriously, what the shit? Actually, that recurring dropship kind of looks like the Razor Crest the more I look at it. But Aki still finds a way to complain about her rescue.
I have clearance to be here.
Not unlimited clearance and not without authorization.
Listen, Captain, I don't have time for this.
That maybe we would have volunteered to risk our lives had we been given a choice.
Well, nobody asked you to save me.
Whatever, you do-nothing bitch.
So Aki came here with no support, it's implied no weapons, severely under-equipped and with absolutely zero extraction or getaway plan, and then she bitches out the guys that saved her. Were you trying to make the main character look like a moron? Apparently these faceless Marines are actual characters, so we meet Vasquez clone number 223.
She thinks you're a man.
I think she's an idiot.
I know you're not a man.
I think you're an idiot too.
The guy who jokes, voiced by Steve Buscemi.
These machines are suspected of causing sterility, and I want to have a little Neil Jr. calling me daddy someday.
That's a spooky thought.
The tough black guy with a soft side, and Captain Gray, voiced by Alec Baldwin, who happens to be Aki's ex. What are the odds? And no, I never caught the other Marines' names. Sue me. Our heroes head back to a domed city called New York City. I guess New York City doesn't roll off the tongue. This next bit drives me nuts. The Marines have to go through a scanner to get into the city, and they find out that Gray has an alien virus or something inside him, and Aki has to cut it out with a laser before it kills him. The guy who runs the scanner yells at her to stop and take him to a hospital several times, despite everyone in the room knowing that the virus is literally seconds away from killing Gray.
We have to treat him, now.
I'm sorry, but that's impossible. We'll transfer him to the treatment
There's
center.
no time for that.
Apparently they keep absolutely no medical staff posted at this laser to actually treat infected people, so all this scanner is good for is giving you a 3-minute heads up before you die. Anyway, Gray has main character stamped on his forehead, so of course he lives.
What's with her?
What's with her and the captain?
What's with her and that stupid plant?
It turns out Aki is a scientist working for this older scientist. Old Science Man invented the weapons and shields that keep the Phantoms at bay. They've discovered that they can wipe out the Phantoms for good if they gather 8 magic spirits that attach themselves to random living things, and the weed that Aki grabbed is the 6th that they found. However, Old Science Man starts burning all the notes they have on spirit research.
Remember what happened to Galileo? They threw him in jail because he said the Earth was not the center of the universe. That could happen to us.
Galileo was imprisoned because his theories went against the religious teachings of the Catholic Church, who effectively ruled Europe at the time. It's about to be implied that this world doesn't even have religion. Galileo has nothing to do with your situation, you imbecile!
If you have any notes or records that could be used against you, destroy them. Keep them up here.
Give the good word to the crew of the Prometheus. We have a new record holder for the worst scientists ever. This guy knows that his theory is correct, the spirits exist, and his technology works, and he's burning all the proof he has for the discovery that could end a war. If flat earthers and anti-vaxxers believe total bunk without a scrap of proof, why not me?
Guys, I've just made a brilliant discovery. If you dunk your Nintendo Switch controllers in rat piss, it'll fix the Joy-Con's control stick drift issues. No, you don't need to see the proof of that. It's all in my head. That's how you sound!
I may actually be giving Old Science Man too much credit. It plays more like he just doesn't want anybody knowing about their plan to stop the aliens, which bites him in the ass 2 seconds later when they're called to a council meeting about their plan to stop the aliens. General Hein here, voiced by James Woods, having way too much fun, has a Death Star laser that he wants to shoot at the alien impact crater and kill all the Phantoms. Now, literally nothing with the plot would change if they just said that firing the laser would blow up the Earth, but that wasn't complicated or stupid enough for Square Enix. So instead, Old Science Man spends over a minute expositing that the Earth has a spirit named Gaia from whom all life spawns and returns upon death, and we can't shoot the space gun because it'll kill God. He instead pitches his plan for the magic spirits that I swear will totally work, you guys!
Can we afford to wait for some army of touchy-feely plants and animals? Where is the proof?
Oh, I have plenty of proof. I just set it all on fire so that nobody else can see it, and you have to take my senile word that it existed in the first place. I am so smart!
But it turns out that Aki has an alien worm inside her.
Oh my.
And a prototype of their magic spirit shit is keeping her alive. This is also why Aki is recording her dreams. She thinks that the alien worm is trying to communicate with her, which apparently it can only do by showing her a home movie of aliens running across a field 30 seconds at a time. Also, dream recording, a technology that, much like the holodeck, would inevitably be used for lots of porn. The council decides to go with Old Science Man's plan, which pisses off James Woods something fierce. I got this new Death Star for Christmas and I want to play with it now! No, 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 no! The Marines strand Aki and Gray in an elevator so they can rekindle their relationship. But instead they just vomit out more exposition because apparently the last 10 minutes straight of yammering, yes I timed it, were insufficient! On the menu for the fourth dump of useless crap that you didn't need to know, Aki broke off their relationship when she got sick and never looked him back up for no reason. And then she explains one by one where all 6 of the spirits came from. One came from a dying little girl so they can show off how way not ready for primetime Aki's facial animations are.
She said I didn't have to make up stories to make her feel better. Only 7 years old and ready to die.
Maybe the restrained vocal direction was less for the virtual actress crap and more to avoid overtaxing the animators. Yeesh.
After another pit stop for a dream sequence, the Marines and Aki head out to the desert to find the 7th spirit. But before they leave, James Woods puts some of his goons in their squad to keep an eye on Aki.
The general is wondering why he's explaining himself to a captain.
You and the Deep Eyes are being temporarily reassigned.
The Marines are called the Deep Eyes?
Deep Eyes White Dragon!
Guys, there are way better forms of Blue Eyes White Dragon to name your Black Ops commandos after. To help you tell the difference between the anonymous boring Marines that are main characters and the anonymous boring Marines that are bad guys, the good guys abruptly start wearing open-faced masks for no reason. Still going with the boring-ass Red Lantern construct look for all the Phantoms, huh? You know, these are some of the most boring alien invaders I've ever seen in a movie, and their dull, repetitive appearance is a big reason why. The heroes get to the desert and wander around until they find the spirit on some dead guy. Now, using the movie's own internal logic, this spirit could be anything. A leaf that blew over, an ant or worm burrowing through the guy's innards, but that wasn't complex or stupid enough for Square Enix, so instead they dump some technobabble explaining that there's living tissue in their batteries, and the spirit is in the bacteria inside an energy tank.
Out of curiosity, why?
Run! Go! Get to the chopper!
So our first action set piece was the heroes shooting at a slowly advancing wall of nothing, and our second is the heroes running away from a slowly advancing wall of nothing. Wait a minute, getting touched by the Phantoms kills you instantly? How do people get infected with alien worms if contact with the aliens kills you in one hit? The Marines make their getaway, but Aki collapses because the life support system upon which their entire plan revolves is failing. Totally not something any of the characters should get nervous about or bring up later, no siree. The bad guys try to shoot her, but luckily the trained commandos can't line up a shot on an unconscious woman 5 feet away, and double lucky, Phantoms phase through the entire ship and only hit every last one of the bad guys. To save Aki, they have to stick the 7th spirit inside of her, and because of more stupid spirit technobabble crap, they have to send Alec Baldwin into dream sequence number 5 to save her.
You're really here, aren't you? Then you're my spiritual support. Gray, how sweet of you.
The voice direction is so bad that line almost sounds sarcastic. You know, it's a good thing they sent Alec Baldwin into her head. The man has experience with psychic dreams.
I dreamed I tore all the skin off my face and was somebody else underneath.
Get that reference, douchebags? I love that movie.
With his first evil plan kaput, Hein has the heroes arrested and stages a coup to shut down part of New York City's barrier, letting in some phantoms to wreak havoc so the council will approve the Death Star because Hein is an idiot. Hein's plan is that he's hell-bent on using the Death Star to kill the Phantoms, but the Death Star is Plan B, Plan A is on thin ice, and there is literally no time limit or ticking clock on killing the Phantoms because the domed cities are getting along just fine. He wants revenge for the Phantoms killing his wife and kid, but what does he care how the aliens die as long as they die? Either the magic spirit shit works and problem solved, or it doesn't work and the Death Star is on deck. Either way, Hein gets what he wants.
It's almost like the plot has absolutely no stakes or urgency, so the villain's brain has to completely fall out to drive the story.
Meanwhile, Aki finally pieces together the meaning of her dreams. The Phantoms come from a planet that blew up, and a bunch of the aliens just incidentally landed on Earth in a meteor. Man, it takes work to make a Superman reboot that outsucks Man of Steel, but they managed to do it. The aliens all died during the journey, which means that the Phantoms are actually ghosts of dead aliens! Holy cripes! Wasn't that already common knowledge? Still, this is a really big twist to pull in an alien invasion movie. The alien invaders aren't hostile invaders, they're civilians and wildlife that landed on the planet by pure chance, lost and confused revenants that can't control how they destroy life around them. This introduces a lot of moral questions into the alien war, whether or not it's right to kill them when there doesn't seem to be any way to reach a peaceful outcome. So where are they going to take this twist? What impact will this revelation have on the rest of the story?
Nothing.
For real though, they spend a huge chunk of the movie building up to the reveal that the Phantoms aren't evil, and then they do absolutely nothing with it. Phantoms still behave like invaders, actively attacking all nearby humans on sight, and even the good guys who know they aren't evil have no qualms massacring them one scene later. Nobody ever attempts any kind of peaceful resolution with the Phantoms or even comments, gee, it sucks we have to kill innocent people. So the 5 psychic dreams they kept cutting over to, the entire deal with Aki having a virus, it all led up to absolutely nothing. That was time you could have spent fleshing out the world to build stakes and make us give a crap about the characters, and you wasted it on background shit that doesn't tie into anything! Back with General Dumbass, Hein leaves the barrier open for too long and the Phantoms completely overrun the city and start killing everyone inside. No! You mean to tell me that doing the stupid thing backfired? Who would have guessed?
They're moving with the bioetheric energy flow.
That's impossible. No living thing could survive in those pipes.
Gee, it's almost like the aliens that everybody's been calling Phantoms all film don't have solid bodies, and it's almost like it's already common knowledge that they just phase through everything without obeying the laws of physics. You're a nincompoop! Better start scouting out locations for New York City, you jackass! Luckily, the destruction of the city causes power to fail in the prison, so our heroes can escape.
Proceed to the nearest evacuation facility. Proceed to the nearest evacuation facility.
I think we should proceed to the nearest evacuation facility.
Well done. I shall award you 4 ha's, hence.
As the city explodes, the Marines head to Aki's impounded ship. Black Guy gets pinned but covers them with a mounted turret. Buscemi drives and releases an impound device. Vasquez collects energy cells and provides cover. Gray operates the hangar's controls. And Aki bravely sits on ass doing nothing. Is anyone else starting to notice that our supposed main character does virtually nothing to contribute to or drive the plot? You know, when Spoonie reviewed Final Fantasy X, which came out about the same time as this movie, he posited that Square Enix went through a phase where they just kind of forgot how protagonists work. The main character of Final Fantasy X is Tidus, even though the entire plot revolves around Yuna. 12's protagonists are Vaughn and Penelo, when the entire story is about Ash and Balthier. Spirits Within is written and directed like Aki is our main character, but she does nothing. Most of the time she's a plot device the other characters have to lug around. If anything, it seems like Gray has more claim to main character status, but he's barely given any development either. Old Science Man is just the mission control, the villain is an idiot, and the other Marines get the red shirt treatment, so we're left with a movie that has no likable, interesting, or compelling characters to build a narrative around. All these people suck! Anyway, Gray, Old Science Man, and Aki get away while the Marines all get killed, and thus the only likable character shuffles off his mortal coil. Honestly, they should have just killed off Old Science Man while they were at it so Aki would be at her lowest emotional point along with Gray. It's not that I want him to die, I just don't want him to live. And exactly what you need right after a massive tragedy where shitloads of people die and all your friends are killed, Aki and Gray do the dance with no pants.
You know, how does sex in space work anyway? You'd think somebody would have tried it by now. I mean, you'd think you would just float around crashing into walls and banging your head on shit. And if the guy pulls out, does it just leave like a cloud of white goop floating through the air that nobody wants to touch? These are questions that I need answered.
The heroes discover that the 8th and final magic spirit is inside the alien impact crater, so the heroes head to the alien stronghold, while Hein, having not learned a damn thing from blowing up his own city, heads to the big-ass space gun to blow up the crater that the heroes are storming.
Okay, cards on the table. I have no idea how this movie ends. Like, at all. The film's climax is so full of weak action that I think is supposed to look metaphysical and so piled on with rambling spirit technobabble bullshit that I have no idea what the hell happens in this climax. Like, the best that I can manage is we'll watch it together, maybe we'll piece it together, I don't know, I do need help on this one. So, here we go.
Aki and Gray drop into the impact crater in a shielded car, but Hein starts shooting the crater with the orbital cannon. This kills lots of phantoms, but also releases a big-ass new monster that Aki claims is the Gaia of the alien planet. Said Gaia just kind of sits there doing nothing. The phantom with the 8th spirit dies, so the heroes jump down a hole to look for the spirit's new host. Inside they find Gaia, who just kind of sits there doing nothing. Aki takes a nap and somehow just wakes up with the 8th spirit. Aki rigs up some kind of weapon with the 8 spirits, but Hein shoots the cannon again, and even though he hits both Gaia and the alien boss, which we built up an hour ago as being super bad, it doesn't seem to do squat. And then the orbital cannon blows up because Hein is such an imbecile that he kept shooting the overloading gun while warnings blared that the gun was gonna blow up.
Warning. System overload.
I know.
Warning. System overload.
I know!
He died as he lived. Stupidly.
Fire!
Aki's device is damaged, so Gray sacrifices himself to the alien world spirit, which fires a gray sky beam into space, and then the movie ends. How does a film with this much exposition make this little sense?
I am so confused I don't even know where to start asking questions.
I had to do some research to try and piece together what the hell I just saw. Now, because Aki's dream has an alien worm shove a tentacle through her abdomen, that's apparently supposed to mean that she's pregnant and the 8th spirit is in her fetus, and that's why she gets the spirit out of nowhere. If you pay really close attention to the dialogue, I think they can't just dump the 8 magic spirits into the alien Gaia. They have to transmit it through some kind of medium, and that's why Gray needs to sacrifice himself to trick the Phantom Boss into eating the spirits. And apparently the aliens turn gray and fire a skybeam.
I just got the joke where the aliens turn gray because they ate a character named Gray. Ow.
And apparently the aliens turn gray and fire a skybeam because this was all supposed to be a peaceful end to the war that fused the alien and Earth Gaias into one, even though on a repeat viewing, nothing to that effect is so much as implied a single time the entire film. And even setting aside the confusion, don't you just love how the climax to our alien invasion movie is both the heroes and the aliens just standing around doing nothing?
Don't shoot any of them.
Don't you just love how our heroes are so ineffectual that the villain has to blow himself up and foil his own plans out of sheer stupidity twice to resolve the plot? And don't you just love how they spent the whole movie building up Gaia only for it to sit there and do absolutely nothing when it finally shows up? How it doesn't factor into the plot at all? It's almost like 90% of the movie's technobabble exposition and buildup ended up contributing exactly nothing to this wet fart of an anticlimax and had nothing to do with the story. Almost like Final Fantasy The Spirits Within has nothing to do with the video games, which tend to be sword and sorcery tales with science fiction settings, but that is so the least of this movie's problems. Almost every character is useless and unlikable, this action movie has terrible action, and the plot is rock stupid and loaded down with a ton of pointless exposition to try and look and sound smarter and deeper than it actually is. It makes feints towards being about faith when it doesn't discuss the topic at all. It pretends to set up a huge moral dilemma only to completely ignore it, and when I got to the end and realized how many plot threads went absolutely nowhere, I just blurted out, "That was stupid!" when the credits rolled. I realized that I didn't let the movie play out without commentary very much. The footage came out too quiet and I need to avoid content ID, but so much of this movie is flat, boring-ass exposition. I swear you didn't miss anything. All you missed was James Woods acting the rest of the cast under the table because the director doesn't care if the villain conveys emotion, and if the only emotional person being the villain was supposed to be commentary on logic or something, congrats, your main characters are still way too boring to give any portion of a shit about. The most proactive thing your main character ever does is take a nap! About the only thing Spirits Within is known for these days is playing a heavy influence on the visual design of the Mass Effect games, providing the inspiration for all the sci-fi tech in that series. And fair enough, the sci-fi trappings of the movie do admittedly look pretty cool, and the visual design on everything except the boring aliens is nice to look at. They just don't use that cool design work to do anything even remotely interesting. It's just a boring movie, and inspiring Mass Effect is way more of a legacy than this forgettable flick ever deserved.